Welcome. A very good morning. We have a lot to get through, so I just want to start with some of the toughest questions that we need to address, and I think that are on everyone's mind. And let's talk about the crisis in Eastern Europe. This is going to have a huge contagion effect globally, whether it's food prices, fuel prices, fertilizer inputs. It's going to have an enormous impact. And we know that there are some opportunities where some African countries can come in and fill that supply gap, but there's so much to do with regards to value chains. The West has been largely disappointed and has voiced that disappointment when it comes to some African countries not voting to condemn the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. And I know that during the Cold War there was a non-alliance treaty that was signed by African countries, and perhaps a lot of people are invoking that. But there's also concern there might be a rise of a polarization as well. I want you to give me a sense of what is going on in your government's minds right now as we enter a very uncertain period. Vice President Mpango.
Well, Madam Moderator, thank you very much for the invitation to be on the panel. First, I want to step back a little bit. That this has been a very momentous time for the African continent. We have seen the shifting of tectonic plates, particularly with the rise of China and India on the global economic stage. We have seen a transformation of trade routes from the historical ones, colonial basically, to Africa doing more business now with the Eastern world. We have seen many challenges, starting with the crash of the housing market in the US. We have seen a number of conflicts in the Africa region, but all that, Africa has withstood the test of time. Africa, before the COVID, had been growing at around 3.3%, 3.3 to 3.5% real GDP growth, and which is fairly respectable. Africa has seen a remarkable decline in poverty rates from almost 50% of the population in 2020 to around 33% currently. So all I'm saying is the African continent has been quite resilient to meet these challenges. So notwithstanding what is going on with the geopolitics, particularly the war in Ukraine, let me assure you that as Africa, we are putting in place mechanisms, particularly to diversify our agriculture, tapping into technological developments, using modern technology to transact in the world. And therefore, yes, indeed, we have already seen rapid increases in food prices. We are seeing an increase in fertilizer prices. We are seeing an increase in steel prices as well. But Africa does produce a lot of food, which we want to trade amongst ourselves.
But I want to ask about why abstain from voting, though? What message is that sending? Because you spoke about something interesting. The economic alliances that we're seeing between China and India, of course the BRICS nations, very strong, right? And we've seen this since the global financial crisis, where there's been a recalibration and repricing of risk. I get that. But do you want to comment on abstaining?
Well, abstaining because we want the world to give a chance to diplomacy.
Okay.
I think that's key.
Thank you. Your Excellency Nabanja, if you could jump in here as well, tell me.
I want to thank you so much. Africa as a continent, to me, I look at it as a continent with a lot of potential, a lot of chances. We have just signed a free trade area.
Yeah.
And for us, if, say, I can say the war between Ukraine and Russia, we abstained because we think we have more problems. We have more problems, and therefore abstaining was a way of diplomacy.
And you want to look inwards and focus at priorities that face your country.
Oh, yes.
Prime Minister, great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
What do you think the path forward is with regards to Africa's message to the world, with regards to Russia and Ukraine? And we spoke a bit about this last night as well. Is this the start of a new global order that Africa has clearly made its voice heard, that it wants to align itself with countries that we've seen sort of emerging as the new powerhouses, which the emerging market space has been doing quite effectively since the global financial crisis?
Thank you, Ellen, for giving me first the opportunity to be here. But I think if you look at history, you know, we had 1945, the end of Second World War. And then we had 1991, the end of Cold War. And then now we are at a crucial turning point for the whole world, you know, in a crisis. And the first thing we are looking for in the trajectory of Africa, you know, we have an agenda. And this is the 10 years of our Agenda 63. And suddenly we are in a crisis again. We thought wars were only in Africa, you know, yeah. And here we see war in the middle of Europe, and then we are asked to choose. So our choice is peace. Our choice, as Mr. Prime Minister just said now, is dialogue, is diplomacy, and that's what just we are trying to support and see if it is possible to be around the table. You know, I always say one thing.
That it's going to show an alliance and that you're taking sides by abstaining? Is that something that's crossed your mind or you're discussing?
Not at all. I think you see, there is a new mindset on the continent, yeah. Completely. I think it is important. The mindset is that we have an agenda, Agenda 63, we have a program, we are working on that, and that's our priority. Now, remember one thing. Any war, any misunderstanding ends at the negotiation table. Why don't we make the economy and go straight at the negotiation table? So that's the position I think many of our countries are taking.
So there are a few interesting things that are happening, and I think we keep talking about the potential of Africa's agriculture sector. Right, and so much arable land. We need agro-processing. We need an increase of value chains on the continent. We need the investment. And these are conversations that have been had for a very long time. I guess the question now is there a way to accelerate these plans? Because there's a clear supply gap coming up on a global scale. Africa has the potential to help fill these gaps, but it's going to take time. We've had so many conversations generally on the potential of the continent. Has it truly materialized in action on the ground to the extent that we need it to be, Vice President?
Well, there is definitely room to accelerate what we are doing, and already we are seeing it because, for example, with the use of mobile technology, farmers are now accessing input prices where the inputs are sold very quickly nowadays. We are reaching markets both within the continent and outside. So, and actually if you look at the numbers right now in some of our countries, we are seeing major improvements in both production and productivity. For example, in terms of the production of rice in Tanzania has increased almost double as a result. And this has taken a very short time. Again, when you look at fruit, the production of fruits and vegetables generally, some of our companies are already reaching the European markets. And for me, I think that is fairly fast.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the potential of Africa becoming a breadbasket of the world. We first have to feed Africa, and we have to ensure that we increase those value chains, that we don't just export raw materials, that we ensure processing within the continent. Can we comfortably say that the dream to do that is on its way, and that there are people in government and the private sector that want to see this happen and happen quickly?
I want to thank you, ma'am. Let me talk about my home country, for example.
Yeah.
Uganda is ready for investment. Already when we came here, we are in touch with one of the biggest companies here, the Erit Agro Company, which is signing an MOU with my country. Agro processing. We already have smallhold farmers who are already organized at household level, and that is going to now increase production. For us, what we need now is investment.
So from smallholder into big commercial farming, that's the link that needs to happen.
Yes, and we are also attracting more investors. We have incentives like land, very good fertile soils, very good climate, and of course, in addition, we are also attracting tourism, because our country is ready to move now. Tourism, yes.
Prime Minister, since we're talking about attracting investment, Guinea has gone through so many changes over the past few years with regards to the coup. You've been put in place by the now president, who's also colonel. And I guess everyone wants to know, what kind of power do you yield? And it's interesting to look at your background. You're a technocrat in a sense, right? You understand what it means to focus on development and to focus on creating the confidence in countries. How are you navigating the current scenario? What can you tell us?
Well, let me give a little bit context. I think it will be important to know. The present government has emerged from a crisis due to a deficit in terms of governance. A president that was elected did his 2 terms and then decided to change the constitution in order to take another 3rd term. Actually, he did a coup, but a democratic coup, if I can call it, quote unquote, and he imposed himself. And of course, that created so many difficulties in the country, including people died. And of course, there was now another coup that removed the first coup. The military coup removed the democratic coup. And these people came in, and I was called also to support as a
So how did that
Minister.
call happen? Because I think everyone wants to know. Were you surprised by that call?
No, I don't think I was surprised. I'm even sure that maybe Mr. Prime Minister and others here know that they were not surprised that this could happen, because it was so obvious the way it was done that it was difficult.
Honesty here at the World Government Summit, ladies and gentlemen.
So I mean, as we call it, this coup was a counter coup, if you can, if you want. So and now the objective, of course, is to re-establish democracy very quickly. But as you know, a democracy is not only about elections, it's about preparing. First of all, you need a good justice system. You need an administration that works properly. And then that coupled now with the election, you can hope to have some kind of institutional change and move forward. And that's what is being done. And we are happy that the world is understanding it. And if you go to Guinea today, you will see all the hotels are full. Everybody wants to come because they feel there is an opportunity. And ourselves, we are trying to rediscuss with our partners, particularly in mining, peacefully, without any coercion and difficulty, we are moving forward and increasing the share of the country into what is being tapped from our Guinea. I give you just a figure. In 2020, Guinea exported 3.8 billion worth of bauxite. We are today among the first, I will say, bauxite exporter in the world. Raw material, no processing, just taking the earth and going out in 1 year.
Lost opportunity in that value chain.
Exactly,
completely.
3.8 billion. And the income for the treasury, 200 million. So, and I can repeat this kind of thing in different sectors. So
Okay.
how do you lift poverty out of that?
And we have to address this because I think a lot of African leaders have said that former President Alpha Conde needs to be reinstated. The African Union has suspended Guinea. So how does that complicate things for you and your relations with your neighbors and with your African counterparts?
But I think it's a position of principles. We have texts, they have to be applied. That does not mean there is no understanding. We have dialogue constant. They are coming to see us. We are going to see them. And we are working together in order to reestablish, to organize elections and move forward. So that one does not exclude the other at all. So, but texts are there. They have to be applied. They are applied. But I think I can assure you the dialogue is constant.
So we're going to talk about some of the exciting opportunities, but Mr. Vice President, you're smiling. So I want you to tell me what you're thinking because, it's been interesting to watch the changes happening in Tanzania as well. I mean, we've seen huge changes and President Samia is trying to change the perceptions and also change the structures and the policies that have been basically impacting Tanzania for such a long time.
Well, first, I really note with concern the situation in Guinea and what our brothers and sisters are facing there. But key, I think, remains that dialogue of the parties involved, of the Guineans, is critical. They should just sit around the table and address the critical issues, ensure that they adhere to the Constitution, because that's where the people, the rulers, derive power from. So inclusive dialogue. Let also the neighbors under ECOWAS be able to help. I think the rulers now should not stop engaging ECOWAS as a region, and I'm quite sure they'll pull through. In our case...
Are you guys having conversations?
With
Guinea? No?
No.
Okay.
No. Under the AU. Under the African
AU,
Union, yes.
That's what I mean. You're engaging. You're willing to engage.
Absolutely. This is key, that we maintain peace on the continent. For Tanzania, again, much as we have remained peaceful for many years, we keep on underlying that we have to maintain peace and tranquility. But that aside, focusing now on new ways of doubling the growth of the economy, and therefore reform. We have focused on reforming the systems, and particularly to make sure that the investment climate, both for foreign investors, for local investors, is really attractive and profitable to invest in the country.
So, Prime Minister, I want you to give me a sense. Since you've come into the fray here in Guinea, what are international investors asking you and telling you right now? Are you seeing interest in Guinea? I know that you've got a lot of money on the table. You've had incredible opportunities emerging within the bauxite value chain. But is there concern about instability perhaps emerging down the line? Are you getting those questions?
No, at all. In the contrary. You see, if you look in the past, for example, you couldn't move between one city to the other city without having a military, control. Okay, you had a lot of military bases everywhere, particularly in certain areas that were considered as not really supporting the government as such. you had a lot of things that were not really right in the governance way. All these things are out now. So you can move in the whole country without anybody asking you, where you are going. Security has been enhanced. The infrastructure was completely down, no maintenance, nothing, and we are trying to improve it. The overall economy, the way in the status we found it, the situation was really, really difficult. Today, our currency has taken 30%, vis-a-vis dollar and euro. So all the macroeconomic indicators at the central bank are in the best position possible for the last 20 years. So, and people, of course, get interested. So that's why, as I just told you, our hotels are full. People are coming,
So who's coming?
But everyone.
Is it tourists?
Everybody.
Is it business people?
No, business people. Tourists, unfortunately, is not as developed as in Tanzania. I had the chance to see Ngorongoro
and
and
Uganda,
Manyara.
of course, beautiful countries.
But investors are coming, and they are there. As you said, Guinea is completely green.
Yeah.
Guinea is the source of all the water of West Africa, including River Niger, River Senegal, and Guinea has 2/3 of the reserve of bauxite. And the biggest, that the biggest project in terms of iron ore for the next 20 years is in Guinea. So therefore, the trickling down of effect of that is in terms of additional investment is there. The potential is there.
Prime Minister Nabanja.
Thank you so much. I want to talk about my country, that's Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Uganda has a very secure environment for investment.
Yeah.
Uganda is, we have developed our infrastructure from north to south, west to east. We have tarmac roads. We are coming up with airports. We have oil. And we are requesting for investors who can come and develop that sector. We have the best environment in the world. Uganda has got 2 seasons. Our land is fertile. You don't need fertilizers for you to grow anything in the country.
Because you've got virgin land, right?
Yes.
So, yes.
Now, I wanted to inform our viewers that Uganda's potential is so high. For us, already we are looking for markets. I saw UAE here, the minister, talking about looking for ways of partnering with countries so that they can now have food. We have food in plenty. We only need now to see how best we can produce the quality type of foods, and also to get big investors who can, because we have land.
So, Prime Minister, can I ask you this? During the pandemic, African countries had to really look inwards for solutions because supply chains were totally disrupted. And that saw an incredible push to start, looking at building manufacturing plants really quickly, processing really quickly. Did you see that happening in Uganda? And can you give me examples about how the pandemic forced the continent to become a lot more self-sufficient than before?
I want to inform you that Uganda was resilient because we started manufacturing our own sanitizers, we started manufacturing our own masks, and of course, we are in the process of partnering with big companies to come and manufacture vaccines. The country was able to go through all this trying moment. Why? Because we have a very good president who is focused, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. We used a certain approach, a multi-sectoral approach, where all stakeholders, including the general population, got involved in the fight.
Yeah.
And that's how we managed to go through. Because the development, the growth rate of our country was 3.4% in the year 2020, 2021, from 6.5% in the year before COVID. Now, you can see that Uganda is among the few countries that had positive digits of growth across the world.
I want to talk about LNG. Tanzania has, I think, 57 trillion cubic feet of gas that is untapped reserves. And I know that the president has been focusing on trying to have conversations with Total and some of the other big companies. This is not going to happen overnight. But do you find it interesting that you're seeing a huge oil and gas supply issue, and that Africa perhaps could be, and there's other parts of Africa that could perhaps fill that gap, and of course supply to its own people?
Well, that is a blessing to us. Actually, not just Tanzania, but the region.
And investment in this project has been delayed and stopped because of price volatility. Do you think it's going to change?
Definitely, it is going to change. And that's why we have been talking with a number of international companies. I think a deal is close now. And therefore, we are already laying the ground for supply of gas for domestic use to industries as well as for households. But we are also in discussion with our brothers and sisters in neighboring Kenya and Uganda, so that we are able also to supply gas to them, particularly utilizing the East African Crude Pipeline Project. So we should be able to use the same infrastructure to also build a gas pipeline to serve our neighbors.
So the continent still needs to industrialize to a large degree, whether it's manufacturing plants, factories, processing of raw materials, of capturing more of the continent's incredible value chain so that we don't lose revenue into the continent. There's so much work that needs to be done. Prime Minister, do you think that the Continental Free Trade Area holds the key to accelerating something, by the way, that we've been talking about for a few decades, at least since I started my career?
Yes, I think the continent understood that. And the continent is making effort already for some time ago. If you look at the regional economic commissions level, there is a big effort. There was a big effort already in order to lift the trade barriers and have common markets. West Africa is an example. There is a completely free trade market in West Africa, which is almost about 400 million people market today. If you have a factory in one country, you can produce and sell in the whole West Africa. So the same thing is happening in East Africa and other regions, slowly. And today you heard about the African Trade Initiative, Continental Trade Initiative, trying to open the entire continent for free movement of goods and people. So the objective is to benefit from this market, because it all starts with the market. And I'm sure with that, we are seeing more and more investment coming on the continent.
Are you worried that investment is going to be impacted by the uncertainty globally right now? Have you seen signs of that?
Yeah, certainly. But I think the situation globally is impacting everywhere. Everybody is trying to produce for himself now.
Yeah.
If you look at the North, it's the same thing. But on the continent, we are trying to produce for the continent first, and of course try to increase our relationship with the countries outside of the continent. But the market is huge. I think the estimate of the trade, intra-African trade, is very, very low. People talk about between 3 to 10%. So which is just not acceptable. I think the potential is there. The other problem was also infrastructure. To be able to move goods and services within the continent. And that also is improving. As you can see, there is a lot of investment in terms of roads, railway, and shipping, and so on. And also, within the agenda of Agenda 63 of the African Union, we are getting to the free fly zone, as they call it, on the continent. So that means airlines can go anywhere without the old barriers that were set.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap up soon, so...
I can say
Prime
the
Minister?
future of Africa is bright. Why? Because Africa as a whole has 1.8 million people, and that means a big market as a region. Africa has got 301.9 billion GDP, and that means the potential, the purchasing power is there. We only need to get companies to come and invest in our areas so that they can tap into that market of Africa. And of course, other markets like UAE, where we are right now, because that's the only way to go.
Absolutely. I mean, look, but investors want stability. They want to know that their projects are going to be protected. They want to know that they're going to be paid back if it's a private-public partnership. They want that security.
Yes. Now, for example, Uganda as a whole, let me talk about Uganda because that's what I know most. We have secure, the country is secure and peaceful. We have a friendly workforce. We have educated our population, which is young and can provide labor, which is skillable if anybody wants to skill the labor that we have. And therefore, the production, we have electricity, which is now cheap because we have electricity that is going at $5, and the production will be down, will be low. And therefore, any potential investor in Uganda, in Africa, the future is bright.
But they want to know that the political situation is something that they can trust. What is your prognosis on the continent? We've seen a few changes since the pandemic.
Well, I think two things. One, as a continent, we have to build a real team. There is a lot that we can do together as a continent. So the Continental Free Trade Area gives us a lot of room for that. But we can work on joint projects, transportation projects, energy as well, and so on and so forth. So we cannot continue to allow the lives of Africans to depend on the benevolence of others. So this is key that we work together as Africans. But second, I want to underline that geopolitical challenges aside, other countries should not sideline the African continent.
Yeah.
It is very important that we partner with the rest of the world and partner in a win-win situation and in a respectable manner. And we will surmount these challenges.
I think it also just comes down to perceptions of risk. And that's something that I have, come to find are so skewed when it comes to the continent. And I think it manifested in just seeing so many travel bans on so many African countries during the pandemic for absolutely no reason. Mr. Prime Minister, when are we going to flip this bad perception on its head? And sometimes we don't do ourselves justice with this, whether it's coups, whether it's instability, whether it's presidents changing the constitution to stay on, whether it's presidents that have been in power for almost 40 years. I mean, we've got a plethora of examples like this.
Now, Helen, I think, first of all, we have to trust ourselves.
Yes.
I think it is very important. We have to know that, we are a rich continent. We are rich in minerals, we are rich in nature, we are rich in people, and we have the market. So I think, and we have an agenda. We have a vision and we have an agenda. As Prime Minister just said, we need now to start working for ourselves in the right way, working collectively, but also building, as he rightly said, I fully support it, building specific projects. I wish to see, for example, this gas project to be not only a Tanzania project or Uganda project, but to be a project of the three countries. That is a big example of working together and moving forward. It's really time to I don't want to say to fully look inward, but at least to tap from inside in order to go to the world. But not just wait for the world to come to us and then react on it. We need to be proactive and not reactive.
Proactive, not reactive. Thank you so very much. Lovely to see all of you. I wish you all the best. And I'm hoping to come and visit you all very soon. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our heads of state.